welcome back from the break. Unfortunately, our last location had a bit of a gas leak. I really couldn't tell you why. Realistically, I would just blame it on Joe for poor funding, but we don't have to get into that. We are here to welcome Kate and Max to the Telegram. Graham gone global, now Joe. And I've been told you guys are here to discuss the Angolan Civil War. Is this true?
Well, yes. I'm here to represent the United States, while this scumbag is here to represent the USSR.
Oh, thank you, Kate, for that beautiful introduction. Yes, I am Max, and I am the USSR representative. Anyways, Graham boy, how are you doing this wonderful evening?
I'm doing just fine, thanks. Now let's not waste any time. Let's just get straight into it. So what is it that motivated your involvement in this deadly foreign insurrection? Resources, ideology?
We see, Graham, the U.S. has been keeping to its containment policy. So after Angola was liberated from the Portuguese and the Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola, also known as the MPLA, started receiving support from the Soviet Union, we knew we had to intervene.
So you're talking about one of the three nationalist groups that remained after the Angolan War of Independence. The other two, the ones you offered support to, were the National Front for Liberation of Angola, the FNLA, and the National Union for Total Independence of Angola, or UNITA, right?
Right.
Somewhat in reality, Graham fan, unlike the imperialistic U.S., the USSR was offering Angola support as it began to recover and rebuild from imperialism.
According to the Alva Agreement signed by the three liberation groups and the Portuguese government, power was meant to be distributed between all three groups. But as is the nature of communism, the MPLA soon seized total control. Since when was imposing a communist dictatorship support?
Let's not answer that. We want to keep it peaceful in here. What aid has the U.S. and USSR given, and how has this affected the war?
Well, the Soviet Union mostly gave economic aid to Angola, but we also gave military aid to the MPLA, which we believe actually helped to minimize the destruction agenda of UNITA's guerrilla warfare.
Destructive agenda? That's rich, coming from the state whose primary objective was to install autocracy by funding an endless stream of weapons into Angola. The U.S., on the other hand, gave financial aid as well as training.
Wow, beef. And have the U.S. and the USSR made any alliances to help with this aid?
The United States has sent primarily financial aid into Angola in support of the FNLA. South Africa has been the primary foreign supplier of troops. A number of other countries have supported the FNLA, including Syria, Tunisia, West Germany, Ghana, Israel, France, Romania, South Africa, Zaire, and Liberia. Notably, the People's Republic of China, a communist nation, supported the FNLA as well.
Okay, at the moment, the USSR remain alliances with MPLA. Cuba and Romania are also impactful allies of the MPLA.
Well, changing the topic a little, how have ethnic groups responded to your involvement?
UNITA is made up largely of Mbangu ethnic group, the largest ethnic group in Angola. It was initially inspired by the Maoist communist theory and has later espoused U.S.-inspired capitalist policies, as one should always do. Good old Graham. The involvement of the Soviet forces has only served to further degrade the already strenuous tensions in the country.
MPLA, which is the largest supported by the Mbangu ethnic group, was created as an offshoot of the Angolan Communist Party. Now, they had the right idea.
Why? Why did the United States cut off support?
Well, there was no more threat of Soviet domination once we eradicated the threat.
You didn't eradicate anything. You could only dream of doing such a thing to the USSR.
Once the Soviet Union fell to pieces, was humiliatingly vanquished, and abandoned their so-called allies that they used to cause so much destruction and death, we gave the country space to respect their right to self-determination.
Okay, all right. So you heard it first here. Thank you for joining me, you guys. We'll say goodbye to our representatives now we're going to bring on two spokespeople from the UN and talk about the lasting impacts of the Angolan War and efforts being done towards rebuilding the country. And to follow suit, we have our UN correspondents here, Josie and Lucy. And I'd just like to point out, guys, my name has not been said one time correctly. I was wondering if we could nail that on the head and try to fix it up.
Thank you for having us on, Gramerson. There were many lasting impacts, including economic collapse, structural ruin, and devastating humanitarian consequences. While some may argue that the involvement of the Cold War parties imparted technological advancements on the rising country, they were primarily and regrettably weapons of ruination. Angola's history is one of foreign abuse, and the Civil War in the late 20th century was no exception. Once Angola's purpose had been used by both superpowers, it was left without aid and deeply scarred.
Okay, so yes, the UN executed some severe measures to cut off the prolongation of the war. Could you explain some of the means used by the UN and why it is believed that they were necessary?
Of course, Granlet. On September 15, 1993, the UN put an oil and arms embargo on UNITA to quell the rebellion. That proved to be futile. Then, in 1998 and 1999, UN placed another embargo on diamond sales from Angola without a government certificate and eventually had to freeze all the bank accounts used in Angolan diamond trade. This is because at the time, blood diamonds were fueling UNITA's warfare.
Okay, so now this seems highly biased against UNITA. Was the UN always on the MPLA side throughout the war?
Silly Grimmelton, we were always on the side of peace. Santos' government, that is the leader of the MPLA, has always been recognized by the majority of the world as the official government. However, the flooding of Angola by Cuban troops has provoked and been provoked by the U.S.-South Africa Reinforced Rebellion by UNITA. The involvement of Cuban, South African, and other foreign forces, as well as unprecedented levels of arms importation, has exacerbated the conflict and led to over 1 million deaths and 4 million. What fraction is that? A third of the population displaced. And the UN suffered its own losses. 2 planes carrying 22 passengers and crew were shot down by UNITA.
Wow.
Had outside parties not hijacked and amplified the Angolan conflict, the level of poverty, death, and internal displacement in present-day Angola would not exist.
I see. And how is Angola today? Surely, 20 years after the war has ended, Angola must be back to normal, right?
Quite the contrary. There is still a lot of work to be done. While there is still hundreds of landmines still estimated to be buried in Towns Village, the Halo Trust has continued to remove more than 2 million mines each day. This is a huge issue due to the fact that it prevents many from accessing resources and medical care. Additionally, the third of the Angolan population now unfortunately lives in poverty.
This picture shows Angola just a few years ago in 2012. It depicts children playing with an old war tank, which just goes to show how normalized this war became for everybody in Angola, and how even though the war has stopped, many of the changes are permanent or have lasted for decades. To these children, this tank has become a normal part of their life, which should not happen, especially to little kids.
Truly a horrible situation. Let's hope things clear up quickly over there. Well, this is all the time we have for this segment, and thank you guys for joining us, Lucy and Josie, and speaking with us here today.
Anytime, Gra. Thank you for having us.